So now I have to watch what I say, make sure I don't use any curse words or any of those fun facts. So what I want to go over is a couple of things, including the syllabus today and your reading material. So obviously, everybody online can't see you raise your hands because the webcam is like laying on the floor at this point. How many of you went ahead and purchased your book already like good students? How many of you should go purchase your book like good students? Okay. So what you are actually buying, did anybody bring it with you in class today with you? Yay! All right. So what you are buying is something called the PMBOK, the Project Manager's Hand Guide. It also now includes a bunch of agile programming. What did the bookstore charge you for that at this point? We know it's too much. Oh, okay. It was how much? The other one that they screwed up was that. So here is my question about that. So there are a couple of other options. This book does not have, let me try to figure out how I can go around the contract. By contract, we are supposed to tell you to purchase the books at the bookstore. There are obviously other places you can purchase this book. One of the ways you can do that is actually through the group that created the book, and that is a group called PMI.org. So PMI.org, if you are involved in project management in any way in your careers, which quite frankly my guess is most of you at some point will have some piece, some tangential piece of project management, it's got a ton of resources. And in fact, your first paper is based over PMI.org and looking at resources and different pieces in there. PMI.org will sell you the book directly without being a member. They also have, so the normal membership is $129 a year. So the book is cheaper. However, they have a student membership for $32. With the $32 student membership, you get a download of the book that you can read on a device. You can't print it out, you can't share it, it's password protected, but you can get it for free. The other piece, and I don't know how the math works, you can buy the PMBOK guide half price, which I think is $49 on their website if you are a student member. So I will leave that entirely up to your judgment, but what you're looking at, and you get in exactly the same copy. The only thing, let me move it to the screen. So there is the same book. This is just the PDF version. And you notice across every page is, the not for sale. And in fact, it's licensed directly to me. And you'll see at the top of the pages, it even says benefit licensed to, and that's my PMI.org membership number. Does that make sense? So I don't know what the bookstore charged, but we're not doing anything really bizarre other than using this book. So however you get the book, the PMBOK guide, that's what I would like you to do. How about that? Is that way I don't violate any of those, and your faculty senate and everybody still gets their money from the bookstore for those people who buy it from them. But there are some other benefits to the PMI.org membership, and you're going to explore those a little bit, but I will mention a couple of them. If at some point you want something that will stand out as a way to get ahead when you're looking for jobs, doing something like the CAPM, the initial project management certificate, most of this classroom time will count towards those hours towards it, and you can actually then take an exam. You would want to study, and there's some specific study pieces for it, but you can get a certificate that says, hey, I have a certificate in project management. For some people in some careers, that's not a bad thing. Those of you that go into project management as a career, whether intentionally or unintentionally, project management can be very lucrative in terms of jobs. So look at it that way. We actually approach this at our college from two different standpoints. Most of you have had operations management, correct? Just nod and go, yes, my head hurts when I think about that. So operations management is ongoing operations. Project management is those things, the opposite side of that, those things that are changed. So when we build things that are one-off, or we make changes in a business structure, you will see this idea of a project manager or a coordinator because we're creating something new. Ongoing, things like a factory, I think most of you are probably not going to be involved in, but more of you are going to be involved in project management. And we hire here at the college, you'll see we have a lot of openings across our college for things like project coordinators. We're going to do a new endeavor or a project or whatever we're going to be doing, and we call them coordinators and different things, and they're really serving in that role as a project manager. So that's my blurb about the book. Take it for what you will. I love Academus and our bookstore. Did that come across as... Because I know after the issue, some of you are in my other courses that have had some issues with that. So I tried to be sincere and throw that out there. So there are some options in how you purchase that. And so here is PMI.org. This is really everything you ever wanted to know. These guys are by far the preeminent membership group. 500,000 global members. There are local chapters in Lincoln, Kansas City, Omaha, almost every major city. And so you can earn continuing education. They have lunch and learns, dinners, and all different kinds of things that are really kind of nice in there. So if you're interested in that as a student membership, I believe you can do that just with your .edu email account. Otherwise, if they have a question about it, are you really taking a project management course, they will probably then refer it back to me or whoever you mention in there. So that's one way you can get that. You'll notice there's a lot of advertising in there. There's a lot of groups that will advertise how to pass the PMP certificates and different things. It's not cheap, some of those classes. So you're getting a college course and you're getting about probably 85% of the CAPM, maybe a little more on there. All right, so all of you have now, at least in the on-campus section, have introduced yourself, and nobody was rude and said online students are, no, you guys are all really nice to each other. And in fact, like I said, a lot of the ones that are technically online in this course, it's because we had some conflicts. I think there's an accounting information systems course or something else at the same time. So there is a discussion board assignment in this chapter also for week 1. So I've broken it down by weeks. So there is a discussion board chapter. For this first week, because I'm mean and evil, and we're going to talk about a lot of other stuff, and you guys haven't read the book yet, I am going to ask that the on-campus students, that you guys also participate in that discussion board. It just gets it out there, and we can all see what you guys have in terms of experience. So let's talk about the big, bad, evil syllabus and what you have to do. If you have the physical book in front of you, you'll notice that it's about 1,000 pages long, right? You haven't opened it yet? It's a lot of pages. So here's the good thing. In 8 weeks, we are not going to get all the way through the entire book. We could. Anybody want to do that? No. The reality is there's a couple of different sections, and we will reference them. This is one, quite honestly, depending on what your career, this might be something you do want to keep, one of the books you do want to keep as a reference later on in your career. If you're managing people, we're going to talk a lot about skills used to manage people. So, quickly, let me make that slightly bigger so I can see it up on the screen. So, obviously, most of that's not new to you guys, although there are some new students. When you log into the class, it says Kenneth Griffin. My syllabus and my door and everything say Bradley Griffin. We are the same people. We are not twins. If I could get double paychecks, that would be better. Bradley is actually my middle name. Kenneth falls off on the end as a legal name that I never use. And in fact, not too long ago when I get stopped, out by Vegas, by the way. Apparently 95 in a 65 was a little high for the Corolla, and the cop just kept saying, Kenneth, and I'm just kind of like staring ahead, not even paying any attention. Didn't help my cause. By the way, a 95 in a 65 ticket is expensive, in case you want to know. So none of that should be new. My office is around the corner. The office hours this year, I especially on email, I will respond literally at 3 in the morning if I wake up or whenever. But my set office hours are Monday, Wednesday, 11 to noon, Tuesday, Thursday, or just Tuesday actually, sorry, 11 to 2. That does not mean those are the only hours I am here. Email me or text me, and if you want to text me, there is a Google Voice number that will text me, and you can actually use that also as a voicemail if you really need to leave some information behind. So you need for this class, you're going to need that PMBOK guide in some form. We kind of had a little discussion about that. The other thing, in the next couple of weeks, you are going to need to purchase a Harvard case study. I deliberately, and probably will get in trouble for, avoiding our bookstore for this. They're only about $4, $4.25 I think right now. They're not very expensive. I was scared to see what would happen if we put it through our bookstore and tried to. So after a couple of issues. So we'll just let you guys grab that one directly. We are going to use that as a case study as we go through, starting in about week 4. So what do you need? You need a word processor. I don't care which one. You can use Google Docs, Zoho Docs. You could use anything under the sun. Don't really care as long as you can save it where I can read it. So we really talk about that idea of project management. We look at it on things like construction. We look at it in terms of ongoing business operations, how we change structure of businesses. You may hear the terms project management a lot in software and in project development there. They're really all under that big umbrella of project management. And so we're going to kind of give it the big giant shotgun approach in 8 weeks, and we're going to talk about a lot of those. So we might talk about government organizations, because sometimes governments work a little differently in terms of who's the stakeholders and different things as we go through here. We'll talk about behavioral issues. How do we deal with managing people we don't directly control? And that's one of the struggles as a project manager we're going to run into. And so we're hopefully giving you guys a tool, a leg up. Not every business school requires you to have project management. And yet, what we find is more people use project management than they do that operations management skills. So course objectives. You're going to look at the 5 process groups of that life cycle. You're going to understand project management cycles, management processes, stakeholder communications, key terms, career paths. So we're going to try to get as much as we can shoved in here in the next 8 weeks. So how are we going to do that? Well, different things. We're going to have some videos, so you're going to see a lot of links to videos. And I'm going to try not to overload you, but here is the one reality. In 8 weeks, according to the Carnegie model that we follow for accreditation, you guys will have 135, or should have about 135 hours between the classroom and your own work. That's what constitutes a 3-hour college course, 135 hours roughly. In 8 weeks, that's a lot of time each week, isn't it? Roughly 16 hours a week. So I am going to send out videos. We are, and that does include quizzes and tests and all those different things. So there is that expectation that you guys will have a lot to read, a lot to do, but it's not overwhelming, I hope. But that's kind of the model, so I always want to throw that out there. So that's where we've developed, and we're getting a lot of pushback from the accreditors about how do we document that. So you'll probably see in some of your classes we're going to be doing some surveys about how long you're taking to read chapters and different things, because we don't really know always how long is outside of class you take. I can look at a book and I can say, you know what, I think it's going to take you 2 hours to read chapter 1, but I don't really know that for a fact. So kind of be aware, and you'll probably see that in some of your other classes. In the spring, every class we're going to hopefully have mapped out kind of an average guide. But that may or may not apply to you. You may be above average, below average, but again, those averages. And I always want to point out when we talk about math, averages can really be a deceptive thing. If I put this hand in a bucket of boiling water and this hand in a bucket of ice water, on average, I'm just pretty comfortable, right? So averages are always a little odd. We need to be careful of those. So I send out probably too many emails, so make sure you're aware of those. I have also noticed that Blackboard apparently is now, instead of when I send an announcement, you getting the text of the announcement, do you guys just get a link to the announcement now and you have to log into Blackboard to see it, or do you actually get an email still? No, not text, the content. So my understanding is the newest update to Blackboard, instead of when I send out an announcement, it just flags you and says, hey, you have an announcement, rather than it used to send an actual email with all of that in there. And so I'll probably send out a couple test ones just to see if that actually is true, because that seems like it might be kind of a pain, and so I might just make an email list and send out stuff that way. So emails are great. Be nice to each other. Well, you can pick on Justin. He'll be our You knew that was coming. So, especially on the discussion boards, and I don't think we have anything really controversial in this class, but we have had issues in some like psychology or history or current events classes where some of the discussion boards have went off the rail and it's turned into name calling and taunting and those kinds of things. And none of you are going to do that, right? I hope not, except maybe Spencer. He's our troublemaker in the group. So what are we going to give you points for? Well, just showing up and logging in, you don't get anything. Darn. But that discussion boards are kind of that attendance point. And so what we will often do, so here's where the online class and the on-campus class differ a little bit. As we go through those discussion boards and we start doing some of that, we'll try to have a discussion in class, and I will then substitute those grades for in-class discussion, assuming you've read the material, you actively participate. And I don't see anybody in here who's a wallflower that will not respond to questions, right? No. So we'll get that part going. And so sometimes those discussion boards are going to serve in lieu of that. So there's 80 points in there for that. That's a big yawn, Marcus. Consider you just woke up for class. It's a 2 o'clock class. Okay, just checking. All right, so discussion boards. There are, I didn't go far enough. There are quizzes in here. And so because we have that structure, we're going to take the quizzes, and the quizzes are going to be the first 6 weeks only. So there are weekly quizzes the first 6 weeks. They are worth 20 points apiece, 120 points for that. That way we're not wasting what little class time we have. There are several short papers and a case study. Those in this class are worth 200 points altogether. And as we go, you'll find more information and rubrics and all those fun things about those. You also have a cumulative final exam. And so here again is the one of the differences between the on-campus. On campus, you have to take the final sitting in here. Online, obviously, they take it online. Online does have a restricted time format. You guys have a very restricted time format because there is a set time and day for that. So the only time that can come into play, or really is a big issue for most students, is don't plan your travel plans before the end of finals week. So if you have some urgent need, your brothers, uncles, cousins, Dan, Whitney, Larry the cable guy's having a wedding, and you have to be there because you're the best man because you know his last and middle name. Do you feel picked on yet, Justin? Okay. Oh, I got to up my game. So if you have something like that going on and there's no way around it, I will allow, with the dean's written permission, to move the final and let you to take that course online. Otherwise, you will be here with me on finals. I tend to bring in donuts and other sugary crap we don't all need, so you can at least work for an hour and then have a crash afterwards. So the other thing on the final, and I'm taking this out of another course, and I liked this idea. I thought this was kind of a neat idea. There is a practice exam worth a percentage of that. So in this case, it's 30 points out of the 100. That practice exam is kind of a scaled down little sample. You can take that. I believe I have it set up. It's either 2 or 3 times. I'm not really sure off the top of my head now. I think twice. So you can actually go through it, see how you did, take it again, and hopefully do really well. So the lowest you should go into the final with is you already have a 30% going in, right? And surely you can manage to pass after that. So it'll give you kind of that, what are the kinds of questions, what kind of things am I looking for? And so then altogether, that's 100 points of your grade. So we don't have a ton of points in this one at this particular point. Now, as this class develops, so the next version, when I go back through and see what happened in this one, it may change significantly. Hopefully not. So the other thing I want to point out is I have a late assignments policy, and that late assignment policy, we're 8 weeks, we're very quick. It's fairly draconian, and that's on purpose to push you guys to make sure everything's turned in. If you get behind in an 8-week course, and maybe some of you have, it's hard to get caught back up, isn't it? There's not a lot of time to do it. Remember, you're working 15, 16 hours a week in that course. Probably the next week you don't have 30 hours to devote to that. So Netflix will still be there when you're done with this 8 weeks. You can catch up on, what's the latest series on Orange? Orange is the New Black, still popular? Am I dating myself there? I don't know what's on there. So 48 hours, you can be given up to 50% of the credit, but I have to approve that. So it's not an automatic, I turned in my materials late, I'll just turn it in and Mr. Griffin won't notice. We do have timestamps on there. If you turn it in at 12:05, I'm probably not going to care. If you turn it in at noon the next day, I'm probably going to go, hey, what's the deal here? And you'll probably fall into that late assignment. It would also be handy if you email me ahead of time. So if you do have something going on, I know we have several people who are involved in sports activities. You guys, your bus breaks down on the way home, which has happened. You can't get something turned in by Sunday because you're sitting in a cornfield in Iowa waiting for the bus to get fixed. If you email me in those kinds of circumstances, we can work around that. If you just happen to disappear and I don't know where you went, it's a little harder to do that. And we will track you down, especially the on-campus students. We will do that. So here's kind of a breakdown of the points. There should be 500 points altogether. So A, B, C, we use the standard 90, 80, 70, 60. So you guys have all been here long enough. It's not probably a surprise on that. Freshmen, that's always a surprise when they come out of a high school where you had to have, some high schools are what, 96% to get an A, and yeah, they have this bizarre things, especially like Fall City schools. My kids are actually going down there right now. So, and my oldest child, stepson, actually went there. So, grade appeal policy. If you think I entreated you unfairly, like Justin, you might have a case for a grade appeal. If there is some reason we treat you differently than the rest of the class, that is reasons for a grade appeal. The policies and everything are available on this link. We try really hard not to do that. So that is up there. If you guys have a problem with the class, so something I've done, something somebody else has done, come talk to us. None of us are really that scary. Our offices are generally open, and we can work it out. If you get behind or you don't understand material, come talk to us or send emails or get a hold of us and find something. So disability services, the biggest thing I see with that are people that are needing test extensions. I see a lot of those that went through the process and are granted test extensions or other testing accommodations. If that is the case or you need that, there's some contact for that. There are some rules about that you need like 48 hours ahead of time. You're supposed to fill in a form so that you can take the extended test times, or if you need it in another place. And part of that is due to scheduling. they have to find people. In some cases, we've had students who need readers or something else, and it's hard to find time for those. So if you're in this category or you think you might be, come talk to me. Again, we can probably come up with a solution. I try not to make the quizzes and anything we do, like those little 20-point questions, so time crunched that really is. I want you to think about the questions, and I don't put a 20-minute timer on a 20-minute quiz. I think in this case, I think we've given you 90 minutes for 20 questions. So hopefully you can find the information. So tutoring, they've expanded their tutoring once again. So there are tutors available in the evenings. There is online tutoring now, which I believe they use Blackboard in their online chat features and collaborate so you can see each other. Again, there's some contact information, really good services. The best part is the new Writing Center. Well, it's not completely new, but it seems to be that they are doing more with it. And so the Writing Center is a great resource. And in this class, you do have some papers to write. They will not give you content and write the paper for you, but they can help you with mechanics, styling, so APA style, which is what we use in here. So those kinds of help are available. Part of that even, sometimes just having somebody else proofread that. If you write like I do, where you're writing as fast as you can furiously do at 11:55 trying to get a paper done, you miss words. Your brain says, I know what I tried to write, and maybe that's not exactly what came out on the paper. But your brain sees it and still interprets it. So it's good to have that second set of eyes on a document. So I like that we are a little more proactive than we used to be on that, and we have that available. So notice that you do have to turn things in at least to them 2 days prior. So if you're waiting to the last minute, that's going to be a little hard for us to do. Academic integrity policy all boils down to don't cheat. We catch students every semester doing strange things. There are websites out there that you can get a lot of quiz materials. I fully expect that somebody will upload to Course Hero whatever quiz or test or anything else I put on here will be uploaded by next semester. Can we use that to see what other students are doing? Yes. There are also services that will write papers for you. We have had students expelled from the college for using those services, so I will throw that out there. If you get expelled from a college for plagiarism, it's pretty hard to get into another school to finish that degree, and your job options with a transcript from a college that say excluded because you're plagiarized it's a pretty serious issue. So there are some services, like I said, that you can pay them to write that for you. And in fact, I get solicitations into my email all the time. Do you need a paper written? We can do that for you. Now, in a lot of cases, what they also do is selling that same paper to a lot of other resources. If you take my cybersecurity class, I'll show you some of the ways we can even find those. So, equal opportunity notice. So we try not to discriminate based on any kind of a category. Unless you're from Kansas. Is anybody else from Kansas other than Justin in here? Luckily, I was born in Kansas and I have family there, so I will have to be nice to him again. But we try not to pick on people except from Kansas in our class. If you think that we have an issue, either in class, off of campus, in any of our program services, please contact us. Sometimes something we may not even know what has went on. I think in our classrooms it's probably not an issue. I think we probably do have some issues outside of the classroom. So there is our contact on the equal opportunity. If you have any issues, if you feel a safety issue or anything, just come talk to us. Unless I really am looking scary that day. But I don't think that's probably the case. So here is our tentative schedule. So some of this hopefully will not change. But what we're going to do, so week 1, week 2, are really kind of that introduction. So we read the syllabus, we go over that, the PMBOK glossary, and PMBOK pages 0 through 64. Now for Marcus, who's yawning over there, if you need to get to sleep at night so you can wake up before class, the PMBOK Guide is not the most exciting book you will ever read in your life. I will guarantee that. So you're going to have a cup of coffee there next to you, Marcus, so you can stay awake. But you will see that we read a lot of material in it. But when you look at it, it's not condensed text. There's a lot of graphs and charts and things in there. So it's not as onerous as what it looks when you first go, holy cow, I got 64 pages this week, and the next week we ramp it up to 100 plus pages, right? It's not quite as bad as that, but there is a lot of material and we cover it. So first week, we're going to look at the PMI website, and so that's one of the things we are going to do on Thursday, if I can remember which day this class happens on next. So we're going to talk a lot about the PMI website. There's some videos in Blackboard. And one of them is about 15 minutes long, quick little introduction. The other one is a little over an hour. So it will take some time to go through those. So that's the other thing we do is when I assign those videos, I can make a chart and go, yep, I know I've got your attention those times and those times. They are mostly out of YouTube because that's an easy format for us to find both content that's relevant. The problem with YouTube now is what? Why do we have an issue with YouTube? Why does it drive me crazy? The ads. So if you purchase the premium package or whatever they call it, you don't have to have that. But I apologize for the ads popping up. But we try to have some really good stuff in there. So we're going to have the discussion board, and we will talk some about the discussion board and what goes into it. And then I will have you guys post that. Hopefully you'll be able to do that all on Thursday. And we'll look at the PMI website, and we'll talk about this material that you're getting introduced to. But there is a lot of terminology, and so that's one of the key things you're going to have to work in here, and that's why we have you go through that glossary. So do I expect you to memorize every term in the glossary? No. Do I want you to be familiar with it? So if you're kind of reading through and a term sounds odd, oh, let me look at this one again and see what some of those are. So we'll go through a lot of those key terms and those kinds of things on Thursday. Any questions so far? Anybody scared? Yeah. Dang it. All right, let me hit the pause button.